Hello everybody, I'm here with John Yelland of Judicator, and he just released his 6th album, The Majesty of Decay, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And first off, I wanted to talk about the concept of this album, because your previous album was a concept album about the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
And so what are you talking about this time, John?
This album is it's a sort of sequel to At the Expense of Humanity. So for those who don't know, our third album, At the Expense of Humanity, is a concept album about my experiences with my eldest brother dying of cancer. So you might think like, man, well, how are you going to do a sequel to that? You know, does your other brother die?
I hope not.
Yeah, me too. But no, so really it just started with... It's sort of a thought experiment about my own death, because death has been something that I have been very fixated on and troubled by as a concept my entire life. And so, of course, you know, my brother dying of cancer in this long, horrible, drawn-out experience was, it didn't help things. So really, like, the idea of having a sort of thought experiment about my own death, I guess, is sort of a cathartic way of working out that anxiety and insecurity. Mm-hmm. It really started to appeal to me. But what I sort of ran into as I started writing the concept out was, this is so depressing. And At the Expense of Humanity was very well received by our audiences and critics, but I did get a number of comments from people like, man, it's a great album, but it's a bummer to listen to. And so I thought, number one, do I really want to do that again? And number two, it just didn't seem really creatively interesting to kind of do the same thing over twice again. And on top of that, it's a thought experiment about my own death, so wouldn't you want it to have a happier ending?
Right,
so,
you would hope so.
You would hope so. And so, so the idea developed to have the first half of the album sort of set the scene as you would expect it to, with, it's horrible, I'm in the hospital, I'm dying of cancer, and everything sucks, and then at that sort of transition point with Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, we get a little bit meta, and I sort of ask myself out loud in the song, what am I doing to my audience? You know, like I'm making the audience feel a certain way, and do I really want to make people feel bad? You know, just sort of reflecting on the responsibility or the power that the writer has. And I don't have a problem necessarily taking people to a bad place, but like I said, for all of the reasons I already outlined, I want to make this a more positive experience. Mm-hmm. And that ties in with the theme of turning suffering into something meaningful, because suffering is something that pervades every fiber of matter in the world is like saturated with suffering in some way. And so, you know, transforming it into something that is meaningful, I think, is a key part of the human experience. And so, yeah, so I sort of ask, what am I doing to my audience? Is it too late to change the story? We're halfway through the album already. And so that's Ursa Minor, and then Ursa Major, like, sort of reestablishes the new reality in kind of a Ebenezer Scrooge way. And then it's interesting, you have, like, track 1 relates to track 10, track 3 relates to track 8. The whole album, like, mirrors itself.
Cool.
And so with, like, track 2, you've got, dying is horrible and it's this terrible experience. Track 9, which is directly related, is about like, dying can actually be a meaningful and joyous experience. Not fun, because I'm sure it's not fun. Everything I've seen, it's not fun. But joy, as a vocabulary term for me, is something that encapsulates something deeper than just, like, fun or happy. It ties into more of a fulfilling. It's more about fulfillment and belonging, I think. So anyway, so Death Bad, Death Okay. Track 3 is about daddy issues. My dad sucks. I'm a bad dad. Track 8 is my dad. He's okay. I'm not a bad dad. Track 4, relationships and marriage. Everything ties together. So there's a lot more there, but that's sort of an abridged dissection of the album, I guess.
I guess in a way you kind of already told us, but how did you really think of that concept? Like what kind of process did you go to come up with this idea?
I can't even really remember exactly how it started. But I remember I was working as a chaplain at the time, so dealing with people who were dying and, on their last leg was part of my daily experience. And I like I said, I can't remember exactly what, but I was attending a conference on how to treat people with what's it called? I'm embodying it right now. The dialogue, dementia, the dementia dialogues.
I see.
So during that conference, there were some parts that were boring and stuff, and so I remember that's the time period when I wrote down the actual initial concept.
Cool.
Little fun point of trivia.
Very nice. So this is the first time that you wrote all the music, and is that because your previous collaborator is no longer part of the project?
Yeah, so Alicia Cordisco, who I co-founded the band with in 2012, left the band in 2020. And we had a conversation, the remnants of the band, what we would do musically moving forward, because Alicia had, of course, written like 99% of the music from our inception to 2020, and so it's like, well, what do we do? Do we try to continue that style of music, the Alicia Cordisco trademarks and that sound, or do we do something organic and authentic? But it's like if we do the former, if we try to write Alicia Cordisco sounding stuff, then there's going to be the risk that people are like, oh, this is a very thinly veiled attempt to ape her style, and it's inauthentic, and of course we could never do her kind of music better than her. That would be arrogance or hubris. So we just figured if we're going to, and of course the other risk is that if we are authentic and organic and true to ourselves, then we could absolutely turn people off. People who had been following the band up to that point, they listen to the new stuff that doesn't sound like what they had heard before. Oh, then they're going to check out. And that has been the response to some people, but
really,
by and large, I mean, we didn't help things by making the High Priestess as a song and the music video that we released.
Very progressive with a lot of different instrumentation in there, and
you would be you would not find songs like the High Priestess on a Cordisco era Judicator album. That's for sure. And it didn't start out as kind of a troll. Really, the song that I wanted to make the lead single was Ursa Major, because I felt this is a song that is more in line with what we had done before. Not like it's a one-to-one comparison, but it's closer. I viewed it as like the safe, good choice. But our drummer, Jordan Elcess, he thought the High Priestess is the one that I want to do for the lead single, because it's daring, it's new, it tells people that we are going to do what we want to do, and he was fairly persistent, and he convinced everybody else to hop on board. So that became the single. But yeah, so I mean, we have had people who don't enjoy the album. We have had people who have effectively decided to check out. But for my part, I would say I am pretty darn surprised at the overwhelming support that we've received for it. You know, people know that it's that the band has changed and that it's different, and they can expect different moving forward. But I'm just really glad to see that so many people are still on board and at least willing to give us a try. And that's really all I can ask for.
When you've been getting excellent reviews from all kinds of publications, like how many publications have you given you a 9 out of 10 or something similar by this point?
Yeah, I'm keeping track of. I have a Google Doc with all of the reviews and stuff, and I think we're up to 22 or 23 or 24 reviews, something like that. And this is the first time we've ever gotten 10 out of 10 and 5 out of 5 reviews. So that is validating because I had been very, what's the word? Self-conscious and anxious about how the album would be received. So there it is on CD.
Good stuff. And what's going on with this cover here? Who made this cover image?
That would be Mark Wisnant. We worked with him on The Last Emperor. He's a fantastic artist. We really enjoy working with him. I came up with the sort of concept for the front and back panels of the art, and he executed it marvelously, I think.
Yeah, it looks great. Very, very cool. So you composed the majority of this music. How did you do that? With keyboard? Because you're not a guitarist, are you? You play bass. I
play guitar, I play bass, I play piano, but I am not a pianist, I am not a bassist, I am not a guitarist. I would say I'm a singer-songwriter, but not a musician.
So did you write chord progressions? What did you do here?
I wrote everything in Guitar Pro.
Okay.
And
which I've dabbled in. It's fun doing that.
I love Guitar Pro.
Me too.
But so I wrote everything in Guitar Pro. I wrote all of the music, all of the lyrics, and the band came together to sort of adapt everything and sort of make sure that everything was as consistent as it could be across the board. Leave their own little marks of personality and stuff. And on top of that, writing in Guitar Pro, as somebody who is not a guitarist and bassist, sometimes I would write things in a way that's just not physically possible. So some of the things I wanted to be played had to be modified or simplified, that kind of thing. So
I know how that is.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I've certainly dabbled in that. Okay, so who's in this band is in Arizona? Anybody anymore? It was
let's see. So me, Jordan. No, yeah, it's just Jordan now.
Okay.
Because me, Salt Lake City, Jordan, Goodyear, Arizona now. And then Balmore and Big Boss John Dolan are in, I believe, Los Angeles.
Okay. And so you traded tracks. I mean, with the Guitar Pro, you probably just printed out the tab and sent them to Guitar Pro, basically, but...
Yeah, being in Judicator necessitates that you have Guitar Pro, so that we can share everything digitally.
Cool. I dig that. Yeah. And then they just use their Focusrite or something and record their own tracks.
Yeah, we recorded our own tracks with the... Well, no. I'll try to make this as short as possible, but our drummer... I mentioned Goodyear, Arizona. He lived in Tucson. He got this new big job. He had to move, and it was this big thing. So he was unable to give the recording of the drums the amount of time and consideration and practice that it necessitates. So he bowed out for this album, and we had a session drummer come on to record the drums, who is Alexander Bassan of Helium Prime, Lunar.
Oh, okay.
He's a terrific musician and somebody that we love and we love working with.
Very cool. And you played keyboards at least on this? A little bit.
I played some keyboards. The vast majority of them were written, performed, and programmed by Francisco Javier Perez in Chile. And he's somebody else that we've worked with a lot and we love working with.
What made you think to put a horn section on at least one of these songs here?
I wrote The High Priestess after a couple of things. Number one, actually really just one. I watched The Warriors, that old, not TV show, the movie. Mm-hmm. You know, the Warriors come out and play.
I know about it, I haven't seen it.
You've never seen it? Mm-mm. I'm not going to overplay it. I enjoy it. It's a good movie, and you might enjoy it too. But it's a really good, like, gangster movie from the 70s. But anyway, it has like a really funky soundtrack, and I was inspired after that, and I started writing The High Priestess. And when I got to the chorus, I was like, ooh, this is giving me Tom Jones vibes. I'm like, all the days I lived my life, I never knew. I'm like, damn, dude. I love it.
It's great.
I really enjoyed. It's just fun. It's just fun, and I don't know. I mean, like being in charge of writing the music, and that's not going to be the case moving forward. Me writing all of the music, all of the lyrics, is not the status quo from now on. The next album is actually already written, and I've written half of the songs. The other half were collaborations.
Cool.
So.
Very cool.
But in any case, I just like that there's a sort of spirit of freedom and exploration and adventure in Judicator right now. It's like if we want to do The High Priestess, we can. If we want to do something like Clowncore, if you've heard them.
No.
Our next album has a section that's pretty reminiscent of Clowncore. You should look them up at some time. They're wild.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's just that spirit of fun and adventure that I'm really enjoying with Judicator right now.
Speaking of this Tom Jonesiness, I feel like this is your catchiest album. Like, just going to sleep the last few nights, even though I haven't been listening to this album non-stop or anything. I've been listening to plenty of things, but I'll be falling asleep and I'm like, wait, what's this melody in my head? It's the new Judicator, and it's like a different Judicator song stuck in my head every day.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, because I don't know, like, I don't want it to be like the itsy bitsy spider went up the water.
It's a pretty catchy one too.
It is catchy, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like power metal a lot of the times has a tendency to keep things too simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to be fair, you know, Chris, what's his name from Glory Hammer and Ailstorm, he said, it's unfortunate, but 4 chord songs pay the bills.
Yeah. For sure.
But, you know, all that being said, I'm pretty happy with how pleasant to listen to The Majesty of Decay is, and how many earworms there are in there. Daughter of Swords is not a song that I would consider to be super duper catchy, like on paper, but I myself have found myself like I can't get it out of my head.
Nice.
And I think just the last thing I'll say on that is just as a writer, I think I'm really drawn toward the rhythm section, and so for me, like Daughter of Swords, to me, like the strongest moments are like about like the rhythm section, like that.
It's great.
That's what I love.
Yeah, I think this album is a lot more progressive than typical power metal. I mean, even listening to it, like there's parts where I'm like, okay, now here's some power metal, but like, yeah, it's not typical power metal, where I feel like every time I try to listen to just like a generic typical power metal band, I'm like, okay, get on with it. Let's hear something different now. But this album is all over the place. Every section feels like it has meaning, you know? Like, how do you feel about it? It's like, in comparison to Let There Be Nothing as well, Let There Be Nothing was also a little bit more progressive than typical power metal. But are you thinking you're going more into a progressive vein, or just tapping into tons of different metal genres? How do you feel about all that?
Power metal has a really strong tendency, in my opinion, to be boring.
Right.
I really enjoy Freedom Call. I really enjoy listening to Freedom Call for like 4 songs, and then I gotta get the hell out of there, because I'm like, I know what's coming. I know exactly what's coming. But for 4 songs, like, it's the same thing. I love AC/DC for like 4 songs, and then I gotta get the hell out of there.
Right.
But so, like, I mean, examining some of the shortcomings, I think that you can find in power metal, you know, in my own simple-minded, smooth-brained way, trying to, like, work around that or address that in a way that was satisfactory to me. One thing that I played around with on this album that I really enjoy, because I want to write music that I also enjoy listening to.
Obviously.
And so when I'm writing the music, I've noticed that a lot of bands, they feel they have to play the riff 4 times. And they have to play the melody 4 times. And they have to do the verse 4 times, like 4 repetitions. And that to me was just annoying, because I feel the obligation to do it, But so what I started doing is I started using repetitions of 3. And I found that I really enjoy that because it's like, it takes you one repetition to like, you switch from one part to another and you're like, oh, now we're in this groove. And it takes you one repetition to like get in the mindset of the groove, and then you have 2 to like groove out, and then you switch into something new that's also kind of related or like a twist on what came before. And so I think it's a really fun thing that I'm playing around with now that keeps things familiar but also keeps things moving. I don't believe in adhering to standards for the sake of just adhering to them, because that's what everybody does and what everybody expects.
Right, I hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably read this here, but have you ever heard the sound of a choir of dying babies?
I laughed my ass off when I wrote that down, because what I do is I write the music, or I receive the music, and I start listening to the music, and melodies pop into my head. And then it's kind of like I create the template for like the lyrics using like Mad Libs. So I'll be like, ba anahita wadnada jito hu ba na na na, and so I'll be like, hey, now your mama is fat, I'm gonna die in an empty grave. And it doesn't make sense at all. But it's a placeholder so that I know the phrasing, and then I just go in and fill in the lyrics. So point being, I was like, I forget the line, scream if you're feeling helpless and alone, and I know you are.
Yeah.
Cry like a choir of dying babies. So I wrote that line as a Mad Lib part, but I laughed my ass off so bad, and I'm like, it fits.
Gotta keep that one.
It fits. I mean, the song is kind of a meditative nightmare, anyways, and it fit pretty well with the picture I was trying to paint. So I kept it. I'm like, I know we've written messed up stuff before. In Sleepy Plesso, there's a spoken word section talking about how the invading Swedes who swept into Prussia, Brandenburg, Prussia, they would torture the people for their money and for their stuff. And I read this account of this guy named David Ertl, I think his name was, and there's an account of them like pouring sand and feces into his mouth and jamming a stick in there and just like throttling it around.
Wow. And
he died like soon after, and I'm like, damn, that's horrible. That's so horrible. And it's something I never knew about Frederick the Great, or the history surrounding the rise of Prussia and then turning into Germany. I mean, I always thought just Germany is Germany. I didn't know there was Prussia and all of these different states that had to be unified. Anyways, so I included that spoken word section in Sleepy Plesso as sort of a memorial to Mr. Ertl. I'm sorry for your suffering and pain, but yeah, I'm way off topic, but we've written about really gross stuff before, so, A Choir of Dying Babies is nightmarish and horrible, but we've written worse.
Right. Well, anyway, pick up a copy of Majesty of Decay, the best work by an amazing band, 6th album by Judicator. You have other albums with other bands, but and guest appearances, and John Yelland's a great guy. If you don't know about John, check out some of his shit. Anyway, anything else you need to say?
2023, we're going to be performing in Vancouver at Hyperspace Metal Festival. Next summer, we expect to be performing in Salt Lake. And go check us out on Patreon. It's just patreon.com/judicatormetal. That's our bread and butter. That helps keep us operational. So definitely, if you're interested, check out our Patreon. Maybe there's something there that will draw you in and excite you.
Cool. And your Bandcamp is just judicator.bandcamp.com?
I believe so. Just Bandcamp. Just get on Google and type in Judicator Bandcamp, and you'll find it.
You can buy the new vinyl and everything on there. So
beautiful seashore vinyl. It's impressive visually. You'll love it.
Cool. Well, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Have a good one. All right.
That was fun.